All right, welcome guys to another round of our private practice building series with real life stories, and we have Laura Reagan joining us today. So excited you're here. She is a licensed certified social worker clinical in Maryland. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want people to know a little bit about you. How long have you been in private practice?
I opened up my practice just a little bit under 2 years ago in May of 2013.
And why private practice?
I think at first I had dreams of fame and fortune, or more fortune than nonprofit work, but also I think it was the freedom and the control over my own work, my schedule, that was really appealing about private practice. I was lucky to have a part-time position that was flexible and paid well to give me the chance to try out doing private practice a little bit on the side at first. And once I got a taste of, doing things that way, I loved it and wanted to expand.
So really for you is about having the freedom and actually having some more financial gain, it even sounds like.
Yeah, financial security more so than I could get in private practice or in nonprofit work.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, have you always been a therapist, or what has been kind of your career path?
Well, I started out in my working life as a paralegal, and I really loved our clients' stories, but I couldn't help them with their underlying problems, only their current legal problem. And I didn't even get to interact with them nearly as much as I would have liked. I was always, wanting to, how's it going? How are you doing? And they're like, do your paperwork. So I decided to go back to school when my kids were little and finish my bachelor's when I was 29. And that's when I started to finish my bachelor's. And at that time, I needed to find something that was in the social work, human services field to do as an internship or something so that I could have some work experience by the time I graduated. That was good advice that my husband gave me as a psychology undergraduate, grad. So I found the local YWCA was looking for volunteers, and I didn't really know what they did there, but it turned out to be the Sexual Assault Crisis Center program. Wanted volunteers for answering their 24-hour hotline and doing hospital accompaniment. And I was a little bit intimidated when I first heard that, but they assured me that I would be well trained, and I went through this really extensive 40-hour training and started doing that work, and I just loved it right away. So once I was doing that, I knew that this was what I really need to be doing, working with people, helping them in a crisis situation, or, just with pain that they're feeling. Yeah, so then I slowly finished my bachelor's and got it by the time I was 34, I think.
Hey, that's great. Being a mom and all that stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It was hard work to do. I worked full-time in the Sexual Assault Crisis Center and got the bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And was a mom, and it was a very challenging time.
Wow.
But after that, we moved to Maryland, and because that was all in Virginia. Then we moved to Maryland, and I started my master's program and got that when I was 39.
Wow.
So I haven't done therapy the whole time, but I've done a lot of sexual assault and domestic violence crisis work. And then once I was in my internships in grad school, I was able to have therapy practice opportunities and did that after graduation as well.
Now, currently in your practice, like, what is your focus or your niche or emphasis?
That's a good question. My niche, I would say, I'm really passionate about helping people connect with the truest part of themselves so that they can have authentic relationships with other people in their lives. And I find that a lot of my clients have childhood experiences, unresolved hurts that are standing in the way of them being able to connect closely with the people that they want to have deep, meaningful relationships with. So I guess you could say that's my niche. So haven't developed my elevator speech for that yet too well.
No, that's okay. But I asked because, I know a little bit about you in that you've done social work and working in these crisis situations to switching over to private practice. How has that evolved for you though? And because it's very different. It's different environments you were working in, and now to be in private practice. How has kind of that shaped your focus today? All those experiences working in the crisis center, working for, government programs and things like that.
Well, I would say I still have a significant portion of my client population in my practice who are self-identified. They come to me because they have childhood abuse, either physical or sexual abuse, that has become a crisis for them, where they were going along fine, but suddenly they're having flashbacks at work, or their relationship's falling apart because they can't trust. So that's when they come in, they're not in the same kind of crisis as someone who has just been through a traumatic experience, but they're having crisis in terms of their trauma symptoms. So that crisis intervention experience has been invaluable in helping people understand, the way you feel is just related to these things that happened to you in the past. And, maybe now you're ready to start working on how that affected you, resolve that trauma, and then you can go back to your life feeling better than you felt before you started.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because if you think of, there's so much commonality in your experience. It's just a different part of the lifespan that you're working on with them. Whereas before, it's in that immediate moment, something traumatic had just happened, and you're just helping shore them up during that crisis. And now you're working with people that have had those things happen, but maybe they're functional in their life, but there are just some things that are getting interrupted. And so what I love finding that out about people, of how we kind of transform our interest and our specialties just kind of based upon all these life experiences, to think you were working in legal field and then to go into crisis and then now to work in this kind of other aspect of trauma. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, thanks. And, everything that I've done before factors into what I do now. It's all helpful in, the legal experience that I had, just helping me understand how systems work and understanding how someone feels during a crisis. But at the time when someone's in a crisis, they're not necessarily having a lot of insight into how this is going to affect them long term.
Sure.
So that's what is really satisfying about helping the person when it has affected them long term to understand, how it connects. And it's like, people are just like, I didn't think that it would be, this soon that I would feel so much different. I just thought this is the way I was always going to feel. And to me, that is so exciting and satisfying to hear when people, basically transition from, there must be something wrong with me, to, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have had these experiences and I didn't know how to integrate them into my life. And now I'm ready to flourish and, blossom. And I love it.
That's beautiful. Did you always think you'd do private practice?
No, I didn't. I really would say that I first started learning in nonprofits, and everywhere I worked was either a nonprofit, or the last job before I went full-time with my practice was a government position. So, that's sort of like nonprofit, better funded nonprofit. But, it wasn't really a paradigm that I learned in school, and it just wasn't really on my radar. And at certain points I thought, well, it's not right to, work with people who have the means to pay, their problems aren't as serious as people who don't have the means to pay. But everyone's problems are equally important,
Yeah.
So that's something that I had to come to terms with. And I think that has to do a lot with just, experiencing, working with people who live in such extreme conditions and how unjust that is. And you feel like responsible for, standing up for those people. And I did a lot of that kind of work and I loved it. But for my practice, the business model that really works for me is doing more, private practice that I am the one who's in charge of, what I do.
Yeah.
And it gives me all the freedom to do things like this and
Yeah.
Schedule my life the way I want it to be, that I can really feel like I have a balance, a real balance.
Uh-huh. What was that, when that period between deciding, okay, I'm going to try private practice, and then those first few months of getting started, what was that like for you?
When I first started or when I went full
just
time?
From I'm going to start my private practice, you're working at this other job, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you're just getting started. What was that experience like for you to start?
Well, I felt very excited. I was very positive, and I was like, I can't believe I have the good fortune to be able to do this now. I wasn't really expecting it, but because of the way the other job was, it just lined up perfectly. But it was easy to start it. I mean, the costs that were involved were pretty minimal. I mean, I sublet a space. I was paying, I think it was $175 a month for 1.5 days per week.
Mm-hmm.
And, I felt like that's a reasonable output. I mean, it seemed pretty inexpensive to me. And I was like, if you think about the number of clients you can see in that time, it really pays off.
Yeah.
So, and I purchased an inexpensive laptop, and it just very minimal costs at startup, because your business is, like you have said, you are your tool. Uh-huh. You're the thing that you need to have to do the practice.
Yeah. You don't have to buy a lot to get started. I think that's kind of what's unique about our kind of business, is that really to get started does not take a lot. I know my accountant every year is like, I can't believe how low your expenses are. I'm like, yeah, I have low operating costs compared to a lot of business owners, and so we're fortunate in that way. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be investing, though, I think, in some aspect. Right. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that makes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have to put out much money, but I now know that the more you invest in it, the more you'll get back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an important lesson for people that are listening right now, to hear that from you. It's like the value of investing in your business so that it grows, What kinds of struggles did you come up against when you first started, even in the midst of your enthusiasm?
Well, finding clients, because I was not paneled with insurance, so I had to find people who could afford to pay out of pocket, and at the same time, I wondered, will they want to come to me? I don't have a name in the community for private practice. A lot of other therapists know me from my work in sexual assault crisis centers and domestic violence, different committees and stuff like that. But, again, that's all nonprofit, and it's different to refer someone to a private pay practitioner. So I started out with one client. I actually got one client in my first month, and I was very happy to work with that one, and I felt, great about it. And then my other job got really busy, and during the summer, I didn't see anybody after that one finished, and then started picking up again in September, October, and it was just really slowly building. So I didn't really know how to market. I didn't know, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea to try to do it without getting on insurance panels.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the summer, I kind of got fearful that that people wouldn't know about me.
Uh-huh.
And I applied for one insurance panel, and they said they didn't need any new people in my area, but then they kind of said, we'll be checking again at such and such time. And so I checked back with them, and I ended up getting on the panel, but didn't start till January. So I went from May to December with just doing private pay. Then in January, started accepting insurance and private pay.
What did you think about that whole aspect? Because I think that that's a common experience amongst people, sort of like, I don't know what I'm doing to get clients. I'll get on some panels.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's what everyone tells you.
Yeah.
Like you have to get on all the panels. And I didn't want to be on all of them because I was going to be doing everything myself. So I was like, that sounds really kind of overwhelming in terms of different paperwork and different requirements. And
So what has been your experience being on insurance panel?
So I was on that one, and once I got on it and I used an electronic health record that had billing through another company, so all I had to do was submit it and they took care of the rest. It was very easy to manage all of that. They were one insurance company that didn't restrict me. They never said this person can only have so many sessions or what's your clinical plan with this or anything.
Uh-huh.
But at some point, I started to notice that the business was building, but I was having to do more for less kind of thing in terms of how well insurance pays versus paying out of pocket. So it was hard to see how I was going to reach my business's goals and have a salary if I just accepted insurance,
Right.
or if I accepted insurance at all. So I decided to stop accepting it.
I mean, if you think about it, you could consider like what the insurance takes out of your fee as part of you're paying them to do your marketing in a sense, and that's a pretty expensive marketing cost when you can do a lot of marketing on your own. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So what has it been like to get off? Did your all your clients leave and run away? That's the big fear, I think, when people get off panels, that they're going to lose all their clients. What has it been like for you?
Yeah, I did feel fearful about that. And I had, very sincere conversations with my clients. And some of them, there was, they needed someone who accepted their insurance. So I helped them find a referral that fit. And then some said, well, I will stay, but I'll maybe need to come a little bit less frequently, like come every other week instead of every week. And then some said, I'm getting so much value out of this, it's certainly worth it to pay out of pocket, and that's what I want to do.
How do you feel about getting off them now that you're in that?
I have a couple more weeks. It starts March 1st, but it's really pretty liberating. And I have to say, too, just, the insurance company, even when I said I wanted to end the contract, they were totally accommodating. They were like, okay, just no problem. And just give us 90 days notice and give your clients 90 days notice. So I did that. And it's been pretty much unbelievably seamless. Mm-hmm. So I'm really, I'm grateful that I had the experience of taking the insurance and meeting so many wonderful clients that way. Uh-huh. And then also grateful that I'm able to, now that it's built up more, take a leap of faith that people will come even if I don't accept their insurance. They can still use their out-of-network benefits if they want to. And that's what most of my other clients do anyway. It's just they pay out of pocket and then they use their out-of-network benefits to get some reimbursement.
Yeah. So when did you make the decision to quit the other job and just do private practice? When did that happen for you?
Well, it was really funny. I mean, and it was probably partly because of getting on that panel that I started getting more clients in January. So I had just, I had my best month ever that December of 2013. And then in January, when I started accepting insurance and getting just, I don't know, maybe it was just because it was January, I started getting new clients, and I more than doubled what I made in December. And I was like, wow, yeah, this is really coming together. And then in February, I made like another 1,000 more than that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at this. And then I was like, wonder what'll happen in March. Every month it was going up and up and up. And I was like, well, heck, I mean, things are, my time is filling, and I need to cut my hours back a little bit more at my other job and add another day. And as I was doing that, I was just like, this is what I love so much. I loved that job, but this was just like something where I could be creative and be, you know, it's not someone else saying this is how we do it. It's me saying this is how I do it. And I had this moment where I said, the only way I'm going to be able to make this be what I really want it to be is if I can give myself at my best. Mm-hmm. And to be at my best, I'm going to have to choose like one or the other. And, you know, the only one that can grow, because the other job was part-time, is the private practice. And the part-time other job, just, it was going to stay the same. So I said, you know, I want to go ahead and do this. And so I talked to my supervisor, I think it was in May. It was right at the 1 year. And I told her, like, things are going really well in my practice. She was so supportive. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to cut my hours down a little bit. And she was like, that's fine. And then once I did that, and it was still just feeling like the more time I spent in my practice, the happier I was with it. I said, I'm going to have to just do this full time. I think in January 2015, I'll go ahead and go full time. Uh-huh. And I started talking about it with my husband, and I was like, you know what, I think September 30th, actually. He was like, really? Are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm ready. And once I started talking to her about it again, I said, I feel like in September, I need to go full time with my practice. And she was like, wow, I really respect your decision. And then this was in June. I told her that, and she said, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, at some point I'm going to need to know a date so I can hire someone. And I said, okay. I was like, August 21st.
It kept moving.
Yeah. Because once I knew I was going to do it, I was like,
why wait?
I got to do this now. Yeah. I mean, it's like this feeling. I was like, I've got to do it. So I did it. My last day there was August 21st, and I did the boot camp with you guys. I think it was September 2nd. So I was like, oh, I'm not doing this alone. I'm going to have some help, because now it's real, like make or break. Before it was extra. Now it's got to happen. So
right. Yeah. I think that's sometimes the hardest part, is when the practice is sort of like the icing on top. Mm-hmm. And you've got your other work that's like, it feels consistent and safe or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then to switch over to just the icing on top is like, you know?
Yeah. It was terrifying. I was really, the anxiety I had in that time. It was like the first week I was like, oh, it's great. I'm going to yoga every morning. I'm going to make time for everything. And then the second week I was like, started the boot camp, which was really wonderful and intense and had me thinking about so many things. And then after the boot camp was finished, I was like, I must spend every day networking all day. Whenever I'm out with clients, I've got to be busy. And there were some weeks that I literally had like 12 networking coffees and lunches and stuff.
Did you pay attention to the boot camp, Laura?
No, you did not say to do that. I was being a little bit of a anxious overachiever. So
yeah.
And it was nice. I did that for about a month. I mean, I met a lot of great people, but it felt so frenetic. And I was like, okay, you can't keep this up. You're going to like have a heart attack.
So where are you at now with like your networking and your pace of life and into, you know, the balance? How is that going?
Well, something happened. I guess it's a January thing, but in January I was like, you know what? I'm not putting myself first. I'm really putting work above everything. Uh-huh. And I'm not taking care of my health. I'm not exercising. I'm not, I was being a super worker, and I was being a super parent and wife, but not being a super person.
Yeah.
Super Laura.
Yeah.
So I said, your business is you, and if you don't take care of yourself, you can't help other people. And we all know this, but it's like it, but you don't always feel it emotionally.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I said, this is it. I'm not going to put all this energy into so many networking things and I'm just going to if I feel tired, I'm going to sleep. If I feel, I'm not going to overschedule myself. I'll manage the number of clients that I'm able to see and do well with without, sending myself into a frenzy of, getting towards burnout. And so now I'm actually practicing that, and I'm incorporating, meditation regularly and yoga, and I also do like strength workouts at the gym, and typical cardio workouts, and just if it's a nice day, I go for a walk, and just what feels right, instead of feeling like I do the Daring Way work, and the Brene Brown quote that she uses is, she says, you don't have to hustle for worthiness. And, I think that's what I was doing. Just like, if I go, then I'll be good enough,
Yeah.
And instead I'm saying, if I take care of myself, I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I am good enough, so I need to take care of myself, and it feels much better. So I actually scheduled today to be no clients. Just I had all my clients earlier in the week, and I made time for this. And then when my daughter was sick at school, I was able to go pick her up. And a client ended up needing an appointment later today for a crisis situation. And I was able to say, sure, I'll see you just for that one session today. And it's like my time is my own, and it feels so good.
And so how's that fear? Is it, you feel kind of more, not totally, maybe it's totally gone? Where are you at with the fear part?
I'd say it's at least 90% gone, because I'm believing that, if I do the things I need to do to grow my business, it will happen, and I'm able to kind of ride out the uncertainty. And just, I've seen that every month, even though some months I'm like, oh, will there be enough money? Will there be enough to pay all my bills? And then there always is at least enough to pay my bills, Not always a whole lot extra, but then some other months there might be a little more extra. And so, I'm kind of trusting that it's going to happen the way it needs to happen, instead of trying to force it as if I don't think it's going to happen naturally.
Right. Yes, I know what you mean. So in terms of what kinds of tools have really helped you manage the business and work on your business, what kinds of tools can you give people listening to that have helped you?
Well, there's a variety of things. I mean, the first thing that made me believe that I could do a private practice was a Facebook group that I found that was for private practice. And, I heard other people talking about their, experiences and pitfalls. In that group is where I found out about you and Miranda, and signed up for your boot camp, which gave me tons of valuable, unbelievably comprehensive number of tips and tools that I never would have thought of or known that I needed. So I think it's funny, because when I talk to other people who aren't in private practice now, and I come across like, oh, all you have to do is this and this, and they're like, how do you know this? But, that's where I realized that I've invested in getting the help to help me with what I didn't know. And so I can do what I do know well, which is the practice part, not the business part. And, using like Quicken and, that's kind of a small thing. I have a CPA who helps me and helps me stay organized with what I need to keep track of and how to think about expenses and stuff. In fact, like the first year, I didn't make really hardly anything. And he was like, you didn't really make enough to benefit from some of the deductions that being a self-employed person can provide. But, he helped me understand, in other words, instead of being like, don't spend, the more I make and the more I spend, the better it'll benefit me in terms of how much I actually get to keep of the money that the business makes. So that's kind of counterintuitive. You think, oh, if I save, don't spend, I'll have more for me, but it's not always that way because you might end up paying a whole much more taxes.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I think
that kind of stuff I wouldn't have known.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the aspect, right? Like planning this conference, right, with Joe and Julie and Miranda. I'm like, I didn't go to school for event planning, like I didn't know I'd be planning an event, which it's fun, but there's also aspects where I have to ask for help. And just like owning a business, like I didn't take many finance classes. I don't know if you did. I think I had one in college.
0.
And I tried to avoid going to class, I think, because I hated it so much. So having people that are great at what they do to support your business kind of frees you up. My accountant's saying, like, did you know you could write this off? Oh, I didn't know that. Well, then start doing that. And, you can't be expected to know all of it. You end up becoming, especially when we're the sole owners of a practice, the web designer, the social media guru, there's lots of hats we wear, and it's good whenever you can to get help.
Yeah. Another thing that's been extremely helpful for me in the boot camp and also just with some of the other online groups is the sense of community and the support, but also seeing other people who are just people like me who have really are doing like creative, exciting things. Like, I won't name names, but some of the people in our group are doing things where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And then, they're in California, so they give me an idea and I'm like, I could do that in this way, or something similar to that. And I never would have thought that people can do stuff like that. Until you see, like, one of the people, you probably will know who I'm talking about when I say this, but she wasn't even fully licensed. She didn't have her independent license yet at the time when she started the boot camp, and she's like a superstar with what she's doing. Now she is independently licensed, so it just gives her more flexibility in what she can do. But, if you think like, oh, well, I'm not experienced enough or I'm not good enough, if you know what you're doing, you can make it be something wonderful. And then people are going to be so grateful because you are offering something special that's, they're like, oh, this is like something I really need, and I'm so glad it's available.
Yeah. I think you speak also to that great idea of like community and to surround yourself with people that are like-minded and successful. It encourages you and it enlivens your own creativity versus when you're around people, like you can find therapists in private practice that are naysayers about the whole thing, or you can find people that are enthusiastic. They're vulnerable. It's not that it's all easy,
right?
No, but they love it and they're passionate just like you, and it just kind of buoys you through the journey of building your business.
It does. The only problem is sometimes there's so much excitement and creativity that I'm like trying to jot all my ideas down, I'm like thinking about it when I'm trying to go to sleep. It's like, okay, time for rest. You can think about that later. But it really gets you. It's probably the most electrified I've been since being in grad school.
Beautiful.
About just what all the possibilities are.
Yeah.
It's unlimited what you can do and what you can offer if there's a need for it.
So what advice would you give to someone who they want to do private practice, but they have a job right now? What kind of steps would you recommend them to take first before they even open up the business?
Well, I think that they would have to do some examination about why they want to and what they're hoping to achieve with it. And what their strengths are and what they can bring. Because I think when you say like, I'll just do everything, I'll offer anything, whoever comes to me can I'll accept them as a client and assume that we're going to work together and it's going to be great. When really you have certain strengths that you bring, where working with certain groups is your specialty and working with other groups is something you could do, but it's not like how you do your best work. So thinking about that and really, being intentional about how you want your practice to be if you're going to do this. And I didn't mention it before, but I did read a couple books too on building a practice. And some of the books that are out there really help you understand like what's really involved in it. I mean, you have to be committed to it.
Can you share what those books are so people
Sure.
know?
I read Lynn Grodsky's 12 Months to Your Ideal Private Practice. And also Casey Truffaut's Be a Wealthy Therapist. And then there are, the infinite number of resources that there are.
I do.
the blogs, the podcasts, and so many things. So I think once you start participating in those types of things and hearing what other people have to say, you understand that it's something that you can do when you feel it's right for you, when you're ready,
Yeah, great. And where do you see your practice going next?
Well, I'm blogging more. I'm focusing a lot on integrative mental health. And so, bringing in holistic practices to my work, whether it's doing meditation or mindfulness with clients in session or letting them know about resources that could possibly complement talk therapy like acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, Reiki. I mean, the more I begin to research this for my blog series, the more I find that and you live in California, so you already know this, but there's an infinite number of things that people can add that really complement talk therapy and I think address the whole mind, body, spirit. So I was coming from somewhat of a medical model because my outpatient therapy experience had all been in an outpatient clinic with a psychiatrist and therapist. And so, you have kind of this box that you think what therapy has to be, but I'm realizing that addressing all of those aspects is really much more beneficial to clients. And you open up things that wouldn't get opened if you just stay in that box.
Cool. Awesome. And you're doing Daring Way stuff too, right?
Yes, I'm not fully certified yet. I'm still in the consultation process. I'm almost there. So, but I'm doing it with my clients in individual work, and I'm going to start some groups. So one thing I'll do this year is I'm going to have a women's group, starts in April. Going to possibly have a teen girls group if there's enough interest. Might start in April to do one intensive in the summer and possibly one in the fall. And going to start a podcast too. So that's my big challenge because I've been hearing from you guys how good podcasting is, and it's like, well, what would I talk about? And the more, of course, I think about it, the more I have many ideas of things I would talk about, and I've already lined up some interviews with some of our wonderful boot camp people.
It's a resource of people, isn't it? Yeah,
really is.
Good.
And it's friendship. I mean, even though we don't see each other in person, being you guys, a lot of you in California, and me in Maryland, but I know you know me.
Yeah.
I know them, they know me, some more than others. Some are more, verbal than others are more like, kind of watch and don't always interact as much, which I totally respect. Sometimes I do that too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your story and your heart. And there's, so much that I think that people will identify in what you've shared, from the fears to the enthusiasm to trying to figure out the balance and really kind of discovering how your own personal journey and story leads you into your path of business, and your focus. And I think it's going to be really helpful for people listening. So thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'll post your website in the notes, but do you want to share what it is? And
Sure. It's www.laurareagan, and that's REAGAN, LCSW-C.com.
Poor Laura. She's had to fix me on the licensure name like 10 times today. So, yeah, thank you for that. All right, you guys. We'd love for you to share what you learned, any kind of thoughts that you have about Laura's story, and other resources that you have used in building your practice. We want to lift each other up and really encourage each other in this journey. So, share below in the comments, and we'll see you next time.